Greetings and thank you for allowing me to participate in the Israeli Christian Media Summit 2021. My name is Michelle Bachman. I'm a former member of the United States Congress, and while I was there, I was part of the Israeli Allies Caucus. I created the Israeli One State Solution Caucus, and I ran for President of the United States to oppose Barack Obama's anti-Israel policies in 2012. I was the first Republican woman to run for president who participated in 15 nationally televised presidential debates, and I'm the only Republican woman who has ever won an American presidential primary election contest. I first came to Israel in 1974 when I worked on a kibbutz named Kibbutz Be'eri in Beersheba. Since then, I've been privileged to visit Israel nearly 25 times, both in my official capacity as a member of the United States Congress and later as the co-chair of the Jerusalem Prayer Breakfast. Jerusalem Prayer Breakfast is a worldwide movement of Jews and Christians whose purpose is to pray for the peace of Jerusalem and to stand in support of the Jewish state of Israel and the Jewish people worldwide. Why do we do this? Because of the biblical mandate to pray for the peace of Jerusalem and to bless Israel and to bless the Jewish people. The Abrahamic covenant, as you know, declares God's intent was to locate the descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in a specific land, the boundaries of which are laid out in the book of Genesis. This was done, the Bible teaches, to bless all nations of the earth. Israel's purpose, according to the Bible, is to be a blessing to the entire world. Joel 3:2 warns the nations against, first, harming the Jewish people, God's special possession. Second, the nations are warned not to scatter his people among the nations. And third, the nations are told not to divide up his land. Otherwise, the Bible teaches, his judgment would ensue upon those nations. Dividing the land of Israel and giving it to those who are not the Jewish people leads to judgment. The Abraham Accords wonderfully opened travel, trade, and relations between Israel and Arab countries. However, that agreement was based upon an ultimate division of the biblical lands. Since January 28th of 2020, the world has experienced unprecedented turmoil through the COVID-19 pandemic. The economic, emotional, and geopolitical fallout continues to this day. The global impact of national measures to contain the pandemic have led to massive losses of personal wealth, loss of business wealth, loss of personal liberties, loss of the right to travel, and to the rise of intrusive surveillance by big tech interests and by governments, let alone the tragic sickness and death. These consequences continue to this day and show few signs of a return to pre-pandemic liberties and lifestyles. Therefore, we must humbly ask ourselves the question, are the nations experiencing a biblical judgment? Thoughtful lovers of Israel would do well to ponder this question. Jews and Christians alike love traveling to Israel, but tourist travel to Israel appears highly unlikely under the current strict entry requirements promulgated by authorities. Those who have been vaccinated are not allowed to enter Israel if their vaccine was more than 6 months prior to entry. This forces a traveler to get additional shots, even if the traveler can prove they have full immunities and negative antigens. At a time when anti-Israel sentiment is rising, and when support for Israel among youth is dropping, it is even more imperative to open Israel to travelers. Once again, let's recall and pray for the peace of Jerusalem.